My sense of who I am has changed very much. And I think for most people on a spiritual path, that happens. There's a deeper level of truth of who I am. I'm one with the divine of my understanding. And this takes one on a journey that is very profound. What we think about who we are, that's more the personality journey. So how do you understand that? How do you interact with that? How do you learn from that? How do you not be completely overwhelmed? Hi, I'm Shakti Durga. Welcome to Mystery School, ancient wisdom for everyday life. A space where we explore the sacred, awaken inner knowledge, solve problems, and learn to live from the divine within. Hi, I'm Shakti Durga. Welcome to Mystery School. Today I wanted to talk about a subject that is so obvious you'd wonder why you'd even talk about it, and that is, who am I? Who am I? Well, at the moment, I'm a person sitting at our retreat centre at the Harmony Centre in Cooranbong, which is just north of Sydney in Australia. And I'm a person who's looking out at a great many trees, at the sun shining through the trees, at the dappled light on the ground, and enjoying the beautiful change of season that we're having here at the moment. And all the light and what the light's doing and the patterns and how it makes you feel. That's who I am today. When we're on a spiritual path, and particularly when we're a student of the mysteries, we can expect that over time, the fundamental question of who am I will have different answers as you go along. When we're younger, perhaps the answer to that question is to do with the family we belong to, the social status, the school we go to, the university that we went to, the job we have, the career, and all of these things describe who am I. And I remember when I stopped practicing law, which is a long time ago now, after practicing for nearly 20 years, I was pretty much entrenched in I'm a lawyer. And when I wasn't a lawyer anymore, I found it quite baffling to really say who I was. And particularly as this was happening around the year 2000, 2001, people didn't really understand what a meditation teacher was, particularly. It wasn't nearly as popular as it is now, or an energy healer or anything like that. It was seen as pretty out there. And it took me a long time to recover from having the identity of I'm a lawyer. And that transition was something that was mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And I wonder if you've ever found yourself really wed to a particular iteration of who you are. Being a student of the mysteries now for a very long time, my sense of who I am has changed very much. And I think for most people on a spiritual path, that happens. But I know that as students of the mysteries, what we're really doing is we're moving our locus of consciousness, or the idea of who I be, from I am this body in this profession, in this place. And while those things are still relevant, there's a deeper level of truth of who I am. And that sense of who I am is very much tied up with the divine spark within, or the atma as it's called in the Vedantic program. It's the sense of the divine spark of life and intelligence that makes up who we are, and all of the energy that's gifted to us as we incarnate, that we get to explore and utilize and transform and reformulate so that lots of different and new realities and patterns can form in our life. So this is the difference between the personality self of I am this, who does that, and instead I'm one with the universe, I'm one with all, I'm one with the divine of my understanding. And this takes one on a journey that is very profound, because at first they're just words. They don't have a lot of depth to them. We understand intellectually that that's what the journey might entail, that, yeah, we're one with the trees, we're one with the sky. These are nice things to be one with. We're one with Mother Earth, we're one with the sun. But the journey takes us into all kinds of interesting directions until we learn that just as an EYE, cannot see itself except in a mirror, so it is that your evolving soul that's calling forth the light of your higher soul, and its journey is the evolution through light, through relative light, through darkness, to answer the question of who am I from a different perspective. And so this evolving soul is on this journey of knowing itself not by what we think. What we think about who we are, that's more the personality journey. The evolving soul's journey is the witness self, and that witness self is seeing itself reflected in everything and everyone around us. So all the people who are lovely and who are helpful and kind and devoted and friendly and all those great things, we can sort of appreciate to some level that, okay, so I'm one with that as well. I'm one with those people. I'm one with the spirit in those people. I'm one with the life force in those people. We're not separate. And I can see parts of myself mirrored back. You know, when my husband is being his delightful self, which he usually is, I can, appreciate that that's something to do with me. It's a much harder journey to own the rest of the journey, which is the journey of what about the bits I don't like? What about the parts of life that I find really challenging or unlovable? And I feel that whilst ever we're drawing breath, there's an opportunity for us to continue to grow in practical ways in love with everything. This is a very big subject, but it's definitely an important subject for mystery school initiates. Now, whilst intellectually I can learn this, and you can study more about this by looking at books on shadow, which are fabulous, or doing programs or courses like we have in Shanti Mission in our mystery school. We teach about shadow in different courses and sometimes specific courses just on looking at the parts of what's coming up in your life that you don't like, what patterns are coming at you from other people, and what do you like, and what are you seeing as it's them, it's not me. We're really here to look in the mirror and to say, for the evolving soul, its consciousness is not the thoughts. That's a different part of the soul. And the thoughts are more related to the personality or the ego vehicle. But for the evolving soul that's connected to the higher soul, the mirror is life, exactly as you find it. So how do you understand that? How do you interact with that? How do you learn from that? How do you not be completely overwhelmed? Because, as technology improves and we have such access to things going on all over the place, all over the world, we might say, you mean I'm war? I'm war in multiple places? Well, technically yes, but I wouldn't start there because that's too big a story to start with in these trainings in the mysteries. Yes, you'll get to that point, but take the other steps between wherever you are and that place. And start with the things that are happening more in your personal life rather than the societal or global life that we live in. And do remember that back in the day, the life that we enjoyed was the one that was our personal life because you didn't have television, you didn't have radio, you didn't have any kind of media or technology. You might have had a newspaper and you had letters, and they took quite a long time to get from place A to place B. So everything was slower. Everything was much more immediate and localized, which had its advantages, but also its disadvantages. So here we are. We're all having our lives in the age of information and technology, and soon coming into the age of AI. And who am I in that? Who am I when maybe machines will have more access to knowledge even about us than we can remember in our minds? What about when a machine can remember more facts about us than we ourselves can? That's going to be an interesting place and an interesting dance with who am I. But unless things change an awful lot, I think that we have an advantage over computers doesn't matter how clever they are, because we are connected at a soul level. At a soul level, we're interconnected. At a soul level, we're growing into not just the knowing of facts, not just the extrapolation from those facts of how we could live a little differently to how we do, all of which is fabulous, but the knowledge of self. And that's really what the mysteries are here for, the knowledge of self. So there's a component of self that is going to be seen through the new journey with AI, a very Aquarian theme. And as we're moving into the age of Aquarius, it's not surprising that technology and AI and things like that are there for us to explore, because those things are ruled by the planetary, the zodiac sign of Aquarius. So what is the purpose of this journey, you might say? Why does it matter who am I, and why would you even bother to delve beyond the personality version of who am I? Well, the reason is because the ultimate journey here in human form on this lovely planet is to birth ourselves as universal citizens. And in birthing ourselves as universal citizens, we have to work through all of the backstories and all of the iterations of who we've thought ourselves to be through time. And that means not just in this lifetime, but in previous lives as well. And that there is a role of this kind of awareness of who am I in the ultimate aim of life, which is moksha, or liberation, or self-realization. Literally self-realization. I realize who I am. This is also an initiatory journey. And some of the biggest breakthroughs I've ever had on the initiate's path has been when I've had initiations from my teachers. And an initiation it's a blessing, but it's a blessing delivered with a lot of Shakti. And Shakti is spiritual energy. In the Christian tradition, it's called Pentecostal fire or the Holy Spirit. These things are the equivalent of the Shakti of the Vedanta schools. So that opens doorways into consciousness that we probably couldn't do ourselves, or if we did, it would take a long, long time, maybe a couple of lifetimes to get there. And what happens through the process of initiation is that we start to perceive the same things as we've seen before, but through a different lens. And we start to understand the things we're seeing differently to how we did before. And primary amongst the things that we're observing is self. And we start to have a very different idea about who self is. I would suggest that on this journey of self-inquiry and self-realization, that it is super important that you have a teacher to guide you, because it's a journey that has a lot of twists and turns and ripples in the force. And sometimes it's hard to tell whether you're going forwards or backwards. And if you're able to find somebody who's walked the bit of the path that you're currently on, and they're prepared to help you or teach you or train you, then that's an invaluable, priceless reality to stumble into. I've had that reality myself, and it's just been extraordinary. And, just the biggest joy in my life has been the self-realization that's come and the help with that I've received from my teachers. Because sometimes you get bogged, when you start to realize all the things that have gone wrong in your life, or the things that you've perceived other people have done to you. And then you start to realize, my consciousness pulled those things to me. There is an evolutionary reason why I've been through what I've been through. And this is a rich subject to explore. When we get to that, it's exciting times. It's exciting times, but it can be overwhelming, because when you realize, look, it's not that person over there who appeared to betray you, who appeared to stab you in the back, or who disrespected you so totally, you start to go, oh, hang on, that's a reflection of something in me And if I didn't have something to reflect, then it wouldn't show up on the screen of my life. And so then the quest becomes to discover, well, where is that in me? Because your mind won't know. Often your subconscious mind will have taken in all the bits of reality that have to do with whatever that is and hidden them from you. Somewhere in your body you'll find them eventually, but the conscious mind doesn't know. And then when you start to come into the kind of awareness of where you yourself have done something that someone else might regard as a betrayal, even though you thought you had really good reasons for it, or somebody else saw you as letting them down in a way that would have felt like being stabbed in the back, then you can go, you can become very morose. You can get very disheartened, and you can go into a lot of shame. So from my perspective, the shame is useful from the point of view of recognizing that your conscience now says, you know what, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to change. We're going to evolve into a different way of holding self. And when that situation comes up again or something like it, I will have different options because of my expanded consciousness of who I am and how my world works. I'll have some other options with which I can go forward into the world. And then to remember, this is evolution. Even when it feels like you've gone backwards, you're suddenly in it. You're in all the processing, as we often call it in the mysteries. It's processing, or it's like in the fermentation process of when you make wine, you know. In fermentation, all the gunk has got to rise to the surface so it can be skimmed off. And they call it putrefaction also, as the fruit of the wine starts to, change, and it can be a bit yucky. So we have that spiritually and emotionally. But if you have proper guidance, as well as a community of truth seekers, and that's called satsang in the Sanskrit. Satsang is a community of truth seekers. Sat is truth. Then you've got people to talk to about, what's been your experience when you've been, well, really? Wow, this has been my experience of that. And together you can share and realize you're not alone, and you can progress together. And so an enlightened or enlivened, spiritually enlivened community is a real blessing. So is the teacher. And the third part of this is the teachings. And the teachings will help you stabilize through initiatory processes. Now, I belong to Shanti Mission, something I founded back in the early 2000s. And after studying in many different schools and traditions, I tried to harvest what was really effective in my journey and put it all together in different programs that could be of use to others. And it's called The Path of Ease and Grace, which is our foundations for Mystery School. And those programs run in a cycle, and you can join the cycle anywhere, and it'll give you a really firm foundation for how do you get through these things? How do you deal with relationships? What is initiation going to do to my capacity as a breadwinner? How do I make money? Is there anything going to change there? What about my health? Very often initiation will bring up things. And sometimes one will get a cold or something as a release of energies that are bubbling to the surface. Healing is of very great value at that time. And we also teach about energy healing, which is a great way to get through initiatory processes. With the cleansing and purification that follows initiation, you'll find that you'll relate to yourself differently, and you relate to your world differently. And very often the screen of your life starts to look differently. So these are very profound and deep mysteries. And it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to live it. It's another thing to enter into this very profound and sacred method of training. So if that's something that interests you, you might want to check out our website, shantimission.org, getting myself mixed up here, shantimission.org, because we're a charity, and see what's on offer, because we really want to help you on your journey as you evolve and grow. So I think that's about it for this episode. Who am I? That's your question for the week. Who am I? And remember that at the end of the day, you're a child of the infinite and you have a very rich inheritance. And may you discover your inheritance and may it bring you all of the bliss and all of the goodness that is yours in full faith. Amen. Namaste, everybody. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me for Mystery School, Ancient Wisdom for Everyday Life. For deeper experiential spiritual exploration, join me for Mystery School Living Light series, and for more information visit shantimission.org. See you next time.